Welcome to the show, everybody. I'm Dr. David Hooper, the host of the Unstoppable Introvert Project, and I am so excited to get into today's topic, which is language. And language is so important when it comes to your self-confidence, how high performing you are, and the ambitions that you hold. It's so important. So we're going to get into that today. How's your week been? What has been going on in your world? Are you still striving to become that unstoppable introvert? I'm sure you are. I'm sure that you are on track with your goals. But if you're not, don't fear. There is still 10 and a half months until 2025. So there is still so much time for you to change your life and to achieve the goals that you've set yourself. Because a lot of people, they talk a good game. Now, we're going to be talking about language today, but I've been speaking to a few people who have been interested in starting their own businesses, but the language just doesn't align to them actually going and doing that, from the terminology they use, the questions that they're asking themselves or asking others. It's just not aligning. But before we get into that, a couple of updates from my world. I've been trying to get back on the social media game. Back in 2019, I was really doing quite well on social media, like posting a lot, getting some good followers, building a bit of an audience and a community, which was pretty cool. And I just completely burned out. I basically didn't post since the middle of 2020. So I've posted on and off, but I haven't been consistent in that, in terms of posting for that whole time. So that is one of my goals for this year, be a bit more consistent on social media. And by doing that, it'll allow me to help those people who need my help. So it's hard, but I'm learning and I'm growing and I'm developing, and hopefully you guys are starting to see that. If you haven't followed me already, find me on TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram at Dr. David Hooper. And I'm on YouTube as well, again at Dr. David Hooper. And if you're watching this on YouTube, head over to Spotify and find us, the Unstoppable Introvert Project podcast. Give us a subscribe, give us a rating, and I can't thank you enough for doing that. So today, let's get into this then. So the L in NLP is what we're looking at today, and that is linguistics or language. And this is really central to you becoming a high-performing, unstoppable introvert, because how we communicate gives an insight into how we understand others, how we understand other things, how we view ourselves. It's really kind of a central theme to you becoming high performing. I know I've talked about language before, I've talked about tonality before, I've talked about the speed in which you talk, I've talked about mirroring your speech. It all plays a part in you becoming this high performing introvert. And again, it's going to be a tool from your toolbox which you can whip out, and it can save you in certain situations. You know, whether you need to display a level of confidence in a team meeting, whether you need to try and engage those people you're working with. Whatever your situation is, language is a really cool tool for you to use. And if you think about it, your choice of words help to shape experience of yourself, of others, and the language you use can also really evoke emotions. You can say the same sentence 3 times in 3 different ways, and it's going to make someone angry, it's going to make someone else happy, it's going to make someone else sad. It really is that powerful. So let's get into this then, and let's start to think about some of the questions you can ask, and let's have a look at some of the ways you can become an excellent communicator, because that is one of the most sought after skills, I would say, when it comes to 2024. A couple of others: are you good with AI? Are you good with digital platforms? But also, are you good at communicating, public speaking, leading? These are all skills that are really sought after. So if we can get this nailed down and you can take some of this away today, then I'm going to be one happy unstoppable introvert. So here's some questions that you can ask other people, ask yourself, to really gain an understanding, but also to develop that mindset of you being fully in control, you being aware, you being intelligent, and you being unstoppable. So firstly, internal questions. These are those questions we ask ourselves. I'm going to put these in brackets and then I'm going to go into a few of these examples. We've got external questions, questions others might ask us, including coaching maybe, or things from line managers, that sort of stuff. We've got questions that are just for informational purposes. So like you might be passing someone in the street and they'll say, "What's the time?" You've got persuasive questions. So that's things like, would you like to pay with cash or card? Which one would you prefer? You've got questions containing assumptions or suggestions. Things like, have you thought about how beneficial this situation is to you? Or maybe, if you're an entrepreneur, something like, I don't suppose you want to book a call with me, do you? But questions in general have the capability to both open up and close down experiences. There's open questions which expand possibilities and closed questions which really provide yes or no's or no possibilities, really. Certainly no possibilities for getting into a really good conversation. And it's that frame of mind that I want you to start to get into, that open, wondering, inquisitive frame of mind, which all really transforms how you approach your language. So something I don't really like to talk about too much, because I think qualifications are important sometimes, but I prefer the experiences over qualifications. But one of the things my qualifications have allowed me to do is really get a hold of how important those types of questions that you can ask are. So at university, the thing I found out quite quickly was a descriptive student gets poorer marks compared to a first class student who is critical and evaluative. And I noticed that fairly early on in my master's degree. And from then on, I've applied it not only to qualifications, but to the way I talk and manage people and lead projects, and really attach tangible outcomes to these projects. And those questions are what, who, why, when, where, and how. Everything you do, and this is a huge tip, please take this away, should nail all of those questions. So what, you're seeking information, you're seeking an outcome. Who, you're seeking information about maybe people. Why, seeking information, kind of the reasons for actions, values, maybe allocating blame, searching for meaning, looking for past causes. We've then got when, looking for time-bound information, things like triggers maybe, cues for action. Where, seeking info about places. How, exploring process. This is kind of strategy, quality, quantity, how much, how many. What I found is if I apply those 6 questions to my master's degree, to my PhD, to project management, to managing others, to my relationships at home, if I apply those questions, 1, I show a real interest in whoever I'm talking to. 2, I get a richer conversation or a report or project or assignment or whatever I'm doing. And lastly, it paints this picture of an excellent communicator. So all you have to do is hit those 6 different parameters and the perception of you will be of an excellent communicator. So that's what, who, why, when, where, and how. Those could be separate questions. They could come out quite naturally. But once you have those 6 different information points, you are going to be filled with all the knowledge you need to run the project effectively, manage someone effectively, build a great relationship with someone. And it's all down simply to the types of questions that you're asking, the way you're communicating, the language or the linguistics that you're using. Because in NLP, these questions help us expand our understanding of the person we're talking to. If you're asking yourself these questions, you're going to get a better understanding of your own thoughts and feelings and understanding your reality in a better way. So the function of those questions might even help recover deleted information or deleted details. Maybe you'd forgotten something. It can also clarify meaning and expand choice. The power of questioning is really cool, and it should be something you use every single day. Just for an example, my wife and I went to a couple of restaurants a few months ago. We went to one restaurant and the serve out was okay, quite young, fairly inexperienced, and she took our order, didn't read it back to us, and we ended up getting the wrong thing, and that it wasn't an amazing experience, and we won't go back to that restaurant. Now, we went to a different restaurant a little bit later, and this waitress was similar age, slightly older, a little bit more experienced, and she said, "Can I just read this back to you?" And she read it back to us. She got our order correct. We had the right order and we had a brilliant experience, and we will go back to that restaurant. So down to those details, that simple thing of, can I just ask you if this order's correct? You know, you're seeking information, an outcome of, have I wrote down your correct order? That transformed the customer, as in my wife and I's experience, and it was, you know, a lot more positive the second time, and we'll go back to that business and give them our money in time. So if you're an entrepreneur, start to think about the ways you can use this when it comes to things like sales. What, who, why, when, where, how. By gaining all that information, you'd really understand the pain points of the client you're trying to work with. If you're a coach, it works in exactly the same way. Understanding their pain points in a lot more detail. And then also, if you have a wife or a partner or whoever, and they came home after work and you asked them about their day and you took a real interest and said, you know, what happened? Who did it happen with? Why did that happen? When did it happen? Where did it happen? How did it happen? By the end of that conversation, your partner is going to feel like the most interesting person in the whole world. If you've asked 6 follow-up questions about how their day has been, they are going to feel so loved. They are going to feel like they make a difference. They are going to really, really, really feel fulfilled. And that is a marriage hack if you wanted one. So really take an interest in your partner. And of course, that's the same for things like networking. It's the same for managing people. It's the same for projects, and really breaking down, what are we actually doing? Who are we doing it with? Why are we doing it? And when you submit that project report, it is going to be really detailed. And again, your management are going to really appreciate it. You are going to be coming across as an excellent communicator or report writer or whatever you're doing. And you're going to be answering these key questions that the staff are going to be interested in finding out more. And that is going to be an opportunity for you to stand out. And it's an opportunity for you to get promoted, hopefully. Who knows? Diving into that in a little bit more detail, certainly around questioning. And again, you can ask yourself these questions. So if you're not in a management position and you're just trying to have a bit of a self-discovery, ask yourself these types of questions, and you're going to get a better understanding of your own reality, your own situation, and that's going to really help you connect the dots when it comes to the next steps and becoming this unstoppable introvert. Now, when you ask some of these questions, the 6 that I've mentioned, you can really get yourself thinking, you can get others thinking, and there's something called a transderivational search. And what this is, it's where before you give a response to a question, you go through ideas, you go through memories, experiences in your own mind to try and make sense of what you've been asked. You'll see, if you ever ask somebody this, there's eye movements, there's other non-verbal communications, maybe noises like, or maybe, you know, where people touch their chin or scratch their head. These are examples of transderivational searching. And what that means is you've asked such a probing question that they are going through all of the information that they can to pull out the correct answer, or the answer they want to give. And I think that's a really powerful thing. I used to do that really obviously when I was a little bit younger. In interviews, certainly, when I got asked a challenging question, I'd literally tip my head and just stare off into the corner. And I've learned to hide that a little bit because I thought, I can't just be staring off into space. It's a little bit like if you've seen Scrubs, hopefully you have, because it's a decent show, that's for sure. I used to love it back in 2000 and when was that out? 2006? Goodness me. I don't actually know if that's when it was out, but certainly late 2000s maybe. Used to love JD and Turk and Carla and Elliot and all the gang. But anyway, when JD, who's the main character, the main kind of junior doctor, has thoughts and he goes off in this daydream, he does this head tilt and he looks to the side and he plays this monologue almost, this memory in his head. It's actually sometimes not even a memory, it's sometimes him thinking of things that might happen. And that's an example of transderivational searching. And it means that you've been able to really get yourself thinking or really ask a question that gets someone else thinking. So see if that comes up in your life. If you've got clients, are you asking them the challenging questions? Are you asking them those open questions that allow them to give you a really deep question? So rather than just saying yes, no type of questions, ask those open questions and really get into some of the detail. Now I'm going to give you some examples of those open questions as well, so you can take them away today. Let's get into some of these questions. And it's quite fun. It's kind of questions about questions, which leads to more questions, I guess. But it all takes us towards this feeling of gaining a better understanding about yourself, about the projects you're working on, about the people you're managing, the people you're in relationships with. And some of these questions are quite deep. They're meant to be deep. They're meant to put you in a position where you're having to search for the answer. And the first one is, what is the most useful question I could ask right now? So have a think about what that might be for you. What's the most useful question I could ask right now? Is it personal? Is it, let's say you're interested in starting a business, but you don't know how. So a question might be, what are the first steps I need to do to start my business? And suddenly you can go from, I've got no idea what I'm doing, to I need to purchase a domain, I need to have a real good understanding of my offer, and I need to set a date when I'm going to actually launch my business. Second question, what don't I know that could make a difference if I did? Now this is a funny question because there's that old saying, you don't know what you don't know. Well, we need to figure out what you don't know and we need to get to know. So thinking about things like my podcast, I know quite a lot about technology, to be fair, and I know about kind of the processes and how to set things up. But something I didn't know was how to link up my podcast with AI. So hopefully you've started to see some clips of the podcast on LinkedIn and Instagram and TikTok. And those clips have been AI generated from my podcast. So I basically uploaded my podcast and then the AI clips it into 30 to 60 second clips that may interest people. Now, that makes a huge difference because I was gearing up to film my podcast and then film 3 or 4 posts a day, which is obviously quite time consuming. So that's enabled me to really change my approach to podcasting, to get more episodes out because I can spend more time filming the longer content, and I'm safe in the knowledge of that when I upload it to the AI, it will clip it for me, and then I just have to kind of schedule it and all that sort of stuff. It's not quite that easy. There is still some bits I'm working out, which is absolutely natural, but it has made it really, really helpful. So have a think about what that might mean for you. What don't you know that could make a difference if you did know? Then I've got a great question for how you can help others. So this is great if you're a line manager. This is great if you are in charge of people, or even if you're just in a relationship. And this is something that I use quite a lot when I'm trying to get coached off my wife. So the question is, what question can I ask that will best help you? Laura isn't a coach. So I try and give her these tools so she can ask me these questions so I can unlock my own brain, which, you know, it's a funny kind of thing that happens. She's excellent at it though. So when it comes to that question, what question can I ask that will best help you? When I was setting my podcast up, I would think of that and then ask Laura to ask that the resulting question. So what question can I ask that will best help you? I would say to Laura, can you just ask me questions about the steps I'm going to take to start my podcast? Or can you just ask me questions about why I'm having doubts around my confidence and the feeling that I'm not good enough to do this? Can you just ask me some questions like that? And those questions that she then asked were really, really helpful. So it's kind of like I was guiding the conversation, I was guiding my own coaching, and Laura was able to ask some great questions to unlock my brain, which allowed me to then move ahead and launch the Unstoppable Introvert project. And I'm so glad that she did, because I'm talking to you incredible people. I am so grateful for you tuning in. We are going to be blowing up over the next few months, that's for sure. 100 plus episodes in 2024. I've also got 10 guests just about all lined up. They're going to be getting interviewed over the next few weeks, which is so cool. I'm a bit worried about my internet connection because it is shit, but we will adapt, and we are going for imperfect action on the Unstoppable Introvert project, that's for sure. We're going for progress, but it doesn't have to be perfect progress. It can be imperfect. So I divulge, but little sneak peek into what's coming. Let's get back into these questions. This next question is really cool, and it's one you can ask yourself. What question would move you closer to your outcome? So what question would move you closer to your outcome? So thinking about that revenue, let's say you want to make £100,000 a year. What question would allow you to get to that point? Is it, do you need a second stream of income? Is it, do you need to have a diverse range of products? Is it, are you going to have a narrower range of products but charge more? What question would move you closer to your outcome? Have a think about that one. That's a really good one for those entrepreneurs out there. So hopefully those help. You know, there's 4 or 5 questions there that allow you to get below the surface. They allow you to really dive into the nitty-gritty around your goals, around your dreams, your achievable outcomes. Hopefully those questions will help. But remember, you know, even though we share kind of this common language with you know, similar people, hopefully within the Unstoppable Introvert community, we're sharing that common language. The meaning is always individual. And what we mean by that is the perspectives. So you may something and it'll mean something to you, but it might mean something different to somebody else. So just keep that in mind. Remember from a few weeks ago, language is filtered. It is a filter. So we can delete information, we can distort information, we can generalize information all through our language. And then the other thing to mention when it is all about this communication is that we cannot not communicate. We're always communicating silently, we're communicating with our hands, we're communicating when we speak, we're communicating with our eyes, we're communicating with our body language, or our arms folded or our arms crossed. That's the same thing. Are they open? And it's all about how you communicate in the way you want to communicate. So in that positive, open, motivating, inspiring way that I'm sure you're all doing, that is what we're looking for here. It's all about that accountability, isn't it? It's about knowing that you're responsible for the response you get from your communication. So do you ever have those thoughts where you've given some information and you've got no information back and you're pissed off at the other person? Well, actually, it's because of the way you communicated. And sometimes we have to work really hard, asking a ton of questions, being really positive, raising our energy, bringing our energy down, changing our language, changing our tone, mirroring, matching. And you still might not get that communication. But as long as you are trying to explore these different avenues, types of questions you ask, speed of which you ask them, the detail you go into, the follow-up questions you ask, you know that you are doing everything you can to communicate in a really effective way. And something that I find is those people who aren't able to communicate in a good way. They come across in a poor way, and I don't necessarily want to work with those people again. So if somebody doesn't take an interest in you and they aren't asking you those open questions, those who, what, where, why, hows, etc., it makes you think the opposite to what we were talking about before. You think, does this person not give a shit about me? Does this person not actually care about what I'm talking about here? So to be a high-performing, unstoppable introvert, we need to have the ability to be skillful with our language. It really does allow us to do a few different things. Explore the meaning of what that other person is saying or what you're thinking in a lot more detail. Challenge the limitations of others. I've got someone who I know is trying to start a business. They said they were going to launch it in 2024. We are 6 weeks in, I think, or something like that, into 2024. And they say, oh, I just haven't had the time. Well, my question is, why haven't you had the time? What is a higher priority? What can you change? And it'll, one, challenge their own limitations, but hopefully it'll get them thinking about, do they really want this? Is this a good thing that they're trying to do? Should they go in a different direction? Should they make time? Should they change their goals for 2024? So it allows me to really challenge individuals and also be challenged myself. 3, hopefully it'll really expand your reality. You can really get into some detail around what you believe in, your thoughts, your feelings, your values, and you can start to appreciate other people's realities as well. And we can really get a good picture of other people's realities. And the last one is we can really appreciate alternative perspectives or reframing. Sometimes you can ask those questions and look at yourself and your situation in slightly different frames. And that can be the key to you walking into an interview really confidently. It can be the difference between you walking into a presentation really confidently. And it can also be the key to developing incredible relationships with the ones you love, but also those who you're networking with and all in between as well. So really exciting, really powerful tool. And when you nail it, you're going to start to ooze this unstoppable introverted scent is what I'll call it. We're becoming language ninjas. I've always loved that term. And, you can do it with rapport, you can do it with language, but I love that language ninja term, or communication ninja is probably the best term. So that includes everything from rapport to body language to tonality to speech to speed to cadence to mastery of mirroring and matching and all in between. So we are becoming communication ninjas here on the Unstoppable Introvert Project. But remember, when you're this communication ninja, try not to fill in too many gaps with your own assumptions or your own meaning. If you're unsure about something, ask a follow-up question. I think I've talked about this before. I'm a devil for assuming things that we're on the same page and we have the same mindset and all these different things. And that has slowed things down in the past. So try to avoid that mistake and instead try and get as much information as you can through those extra questions, and that's going to paint a really nice picture for you so you are full of the information that you need. Because your ability to challenge whoever you're talking to with your language and your ability to overcome that kind of filter, that delete, distort, and generalize filter, it's vital to get your colleagues and friends and family thinking and really diving into that deep detail. Because remember, NLP explores all aspects. So thoughts, i.e. the neuro, and they're affected by the words, linguistic, and that impacts the actions, which is the programming. Neuro-linguistic programming. You can see how this all kind of ties together. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I hope that you're ready to become a communication ninja. Remember, you've got those questions, you've got those tools, you've got your tonality, your body language, you've got building rapport, matching, mirroring, the speed you talk at, the words you use, the types of questions you actually ask, and that is going to help you level up your communication game and become a communication ninja. So to just bring this podcast to a close, I do want to just thank you so much for all of the follows and the likes and everybody subscribing to the podcast. It means so, so much. If you haven't already, head over to Spotify. It's on the Unstoppable Introvert Project podcast. Give us a subscribe and a rating. Also, we're trying to push YouTube as well. You can watch the podcast with video on my YouTube channel at Dr. David Hooper. And of course, keep up to date with everything on Instagram, LinkedIn, and TikTok and Facebook at Dr. David Hooper. Find me on there, drop me a message, and we can change this world for introverts together. And remember, your introversion isn't the thing that will hold you back. It is the thing that will launch you into the life that you are craving. Have an amazing week. Stay unstoppable.